So if we step back to the R5C then, well, who's it for? It's for someone who needs a capable, established pro photo camera with pro capable, established video features as well. And you should really only be looking at it, as I mentioned earlier, if you need both of those things, or if you need 8K for some project you're doing. A lot of the discussion I see online is really just looking at the R5C in terms of its capabilities as a video camera. With photos, people just kind of brush it aside and say, hey, yeah, it's an R5, and now this is what it does for video. But really, if you're someone who doesn't need those photo features, then don't whine about the video features and just get a C70 or a C300 or a Sony or a Panasonic or whatever. And it's interesting, I think a lot of these fancy new video modes and high resolution 8K stuff is really just a product of having high resolution sensors in the cameras. I don't think that Canon and Sony are doing market research and saying, hey, the sub $6,000 or $5,000 mirrorless market is demanding 8K 30, let alone 8K 60 RAW. I think it's really just a byproduct of having these 45 or 60 megapixel sensors in these cameras and then having the imaging pipelines and processing in place to do 20, 30 RAW, uncompressed images a second. And so they say, well, hey, we've got the processing power to do 8K 30, 8K 60. Let's give it a go. Why not? And so here we are. And of course, those are the things onto which people latch. It's an interesting conundrum where you think, well, if you really have these requirements, why are you looking at this small mirrorless camera that's limited in the professional video sense in so many other ways? I mean, even the R5C is going to have limitations were it to be used like a Red V-Raptor or, a helium 8K sensor like that. And again, on that note, I mean, looking at deliverables, I am excited. I mean, I probably ding around with the 8K a bit, never really use it. It's nice that we're going to get the 4K 60 downsampled, essentially a 4K 60 HQ and not just 4K 30 HQ. It's nice for resizing and zooming and cropping and doing all the stuff we've been doing with 4K, but down to 1080 deliverables. But really, again, I kind of question what people are doing in this market, because this is more or less a low-end camera in the grand scheme of things. You can do beautiful things with these low-end cameras today, but they don't really lend themselves to being in a real hustle-bustle professional environment. For me, at least, my deliverables are all 1080. Social media. I mean, even if it is 4K on YouTube, the number of people who are watching in 4K or have 4K monitors, and the list goes on. Are these things necessary? No. They're nice to have, but are they necessary? No. Especially at this end of the market, I think. But then again, these things are fun, and that's why we have these discussions, is because the technology is great and it's wonderful to have this stuff available to us. So without too much further ado, let's take a look at some of the main issues that people are having with the R5C, and I'll give my thoughts on them for whatever that is worth. So we've got the mini HDMI port. Yeah, that's ridiculous. It makes the camera look unprofessional. I don't think it's an issue, it's not an issue with the R5C per se. It's something that would have come into fruition with the original development of the R5. And I remember looking at the Lens Rentals teardown of the R5 they did back in the fall of 2020. If you look there at the main board shots, yeah, you can tell if they fudged stuff a bit, they'd be able to fit a full-size HDMI port in there. They didn't. So they chose not to do it for whatever reason. That's really strange. I mean, even the EOS R and the 1DC have a mini HDMI port. Having a port of that size in a camera at this price is ridiculous. And it would be nice if Canon reps, when they come out and talk to us, would just look at us straight and say, hey, we decided not to do it for these reasons, instead of saying, oh, but the body's so small. Yeah, just like the Sonys and the Panasonics that are fitting it in. So whatever the reason is. They've got timecode on there, which is interesting. Not what I would have done. That's, to me, is kind of pushing it more towards the pro end of the market. Because as far as I know, see, I'm not a timecode person. I'm a clap syncer. As far as I know with timecode, you can use timecode through third-party devices like Tentacle Sync, and maybe even like some of the Atomos monitors and stuff can output a timecode as well that can then be jammed. With other cameras, I don't know, if you know timecode and use timecode, then you need it. But for me, I would have loved an SDI port. My gosh, can you imagine if this had an SDI port you can lock? You could put a beautiful 90-degree cable on there and not have it brushing and sticking out and just, it'd be lovely to have a 12G SDI. That would just really be the bee's knees. It doesn't have any extra mounting points on the bottom. Again, this seems strange. Then again, not really any other mirrorless cameras are doing it. The GH5 didn't have it. The GH6 and the S1H do. So kudos to Panasonic, they learned. Getting the battery grip does give you this other socket on the bottom there. It's not threaded. This is just for some of those, I think it's Manfrotto plates and some other plates that do have that little metal tab that kicks up, which is better than nothing, but that often limits where you can place the camera on that plate. I would love to have a 3/8 of an inch and a 1/4 inch threaded hole on the bottom of the camera. That would be wonderful. It doesn't have any internal NDs, and again, no camera this size does. They're not gonna get them. It's fine. And also with Canon, allows you to use their ND adapter, their EF to EOS R adapter. I've got just the dumb, actually it's not a dumb adapter, it's a very smart, good adapter here. I've yet to purchase a single RF lens, and I don't really plan to immediately because I don't need it. I'd rather spend $100. In fact, I got this included with the camera here. I'd rather just use that with all my EF class. Versus buying new RF stuff. The lack of XLR ports and then having the Tascam audio solution. Yeah, I mean, why not? That's great. You're never going to get even mini XLRs on a body this size. But to be able to do something useful with the flash socket there and to have that smart adapter and stuff, yeah, it's not going to be for everyone. And really, I can only imagine it being useful in kind of a sit-down interview setting where you're not moving the camera too much. Because yeah, you got to be careful. I guess it's kind of like having a big flash on if you're doing photography. I guess it's more or less the same thing. Anyways, I don't think I would do that. I would probably just use it as a kind of an A/B cam. Anyways, I can imagine using it sort of as the A cam and doing the 4K HQ or maybe even the 8K if I'm feeling bold for kind of a detailed wide interview sit-down shot, and then having the C200 there doing a tighter shot. But then I'd feed the audio into the XLRs and the C200. And is 3.5mm audio good enough? Hell yes, it is. Again, as long as you're not getting any electronic interference, as long as your levels are good and you're not pushing it too much, as long as you're not getting clothing rustle, it's good enough, at least for my needs. And I would imagine that if you need more than what the camera can provide, you'll hopefully have another camera that has XLR inputs and some better phantom-powered microphones, or else you're recording externally and you've got an audio guy or you're doing something separate. So that takes care of that. The photo-video switch, yeah, people are really up in arms about this. I don't know why. I mean, really, I feel like the market will decide whether or not this is a good idea to really separate the two of them. Canon already has, I think, very intuitive menus in both their photo and video cameras, and trying to think about how they would mush those together. It's just going to be a hell of a lot of menus, and I would, for one, rather not sift through all of them, even if they were pared down to kind of bare bones. But really, then you're removing a bunch of options, and that's not the point. So I think having those completely separate photo and video modes is, fingers crossed, great. I guess I'll see. Now, people are very concerned with the switch time. Yeah, makes sense. I'm interested to see, and I think since many people have the camera in their hands now, they've done tests. If you turn off the sensor cleaning, I think it is a few seconds quicker. What I've heard is about 7 or 8 seconds, but then turning off sensor cleaning shaves another 3 or 4 seconds off that time. Still not as quick as, you can set a custom mode on this and just hit the rec button right away and go whatever your custom setting is, which may or may not be suitable for what you're doing. Although I think you can have 3. You can have 3 custom settings. I never do it. I'm a kind of either doing photo or video. In fact, getting back to the 1DC, I think it might actually be the fastest. If you're in doing photos, you go click, and I'm recording. It's about 2 or 3 seconds. You can probably make the change on this. So it's actually maybe the quickest. Now, something for me, which I don't really understand, is what the usage case is for being able to switch back and forth instantly between photo and video. And I suppose I'm playing the devil's advocate a bit here, but I am genuinely curious as to what people's usage cases are where they need to be switching back and forth between photo and video that quickly, that often. So usually if I'm shooting something that's going to require both photo and video, I either let my client know beforehand, if they request photo and video, I say, okay, well, we'll probably kind of move through and do photos here, and then we're going to move through and do video. Okay. Or else I'll bring a second shooter if there's things that are happening simultaneously that are non-repeatable. And that then gets fit into the budget and says, oh, I say, hey, this is what we need to do. The thing is, if you're shooting photos, like I'm imagining at a wedding or something, or an event when you got someone up on a podium going up and talking, if you're doing a bunch of stills and then going to video, it takes a few seconds for the camera to settle, for you to refocus, for you to reframe, for you to find video, for you to make sure all these things are coming. Even if I am shooting stills and I hit the button to go to video, the first 2 or 3 seconds of that video are unusable anyways. And if you think about it, even a short video clip, you're going to need at least 10 or 15 seconds of video for it to be anything. So at a wedding where things are non-repeatable, where you've got the bride and the groom and yada yada and all the wedding stuff they do, and then they're coming down the aisle, or people are clapping and cheering, I can't imagine, even if you could switch back and forth instantly, even if it was a 0.5 second change, the time it's going to take for the camera to settle, for you to be able to focus and find and capture a moment, and then switch back to stills and try to get stuff. Things are happening too quickly. And so I'm genuinely curious as to what usage cases are where you would need to switch back and forth that quickly. So tell me in the comments, I suppose.